What happened to all these big Canadian honker geese? Let's look into it a little farther and see what happened. We're getting ready to go down to the Owyhee River and try a little bit of bass fishing this morning. I'll tie our lines up and get everything ready, so as soon as we get there, hopefully we can throw our hooks in and start catching some of those nice big bass, and they're just super good eating. We're going to have a bass feed, hopefully. As soon as March gets ready, we'll get in the vehicle and go down our little 2-track road for about 7.5 miles till we get to the main road. Then we'll head for the Owyhee River. We'll go down by the little town of Rome, located in the valley right near the Owyhee River. Rome got its name from some of the early explorers saw the pillars carved out of the sandstone by the river, and they said, "This looks like the towers of Rome. Let's call it Rome." When we get to Rome, we take the Skull Creek Road, a pretty good road for just a short distance from Rome. We go past a big feedlot and head for the Owyhee River. We turn off the main road and head down to the river. We drive down the little 2-track road with just a little bit of grass growing in the center of it till we reach the Owyhee River. We followed this little 2-track, and then it sort of went into a little narrower spot sort of with the hill there, and I looked over and I could see something laying there, and I had to figure out what it was. Then I got out of the car and looked and found that it was a bunch of Canadian honker geese. I tried to count them, but really couldn't because they were piled so high, and the predators had drugged some up all over the hills and sat down and eat them. You'd see a pile of feathers wherever they'd eaten them. And so I was puzzled what could have killed this many geese. I tried to reason it out in my mind and couldn't think of anything. I first thought that possibly it was some kind of agriculture spray that accidentally killed them. But then I remembered that back in the 1950s, when I lived on a ranch in Montana, we had a grasshopper spray that was pretty deadly, but they banned that now, so I couldn't think of an agriculture chemical that could have killed them. And then my wife suggested maybe somebody shot them, and I said there's no way anyone could have shot that many geese, that they're way too smart for that. Then, after some thinking about it, I remembered that there was occasionally an agriculture emergency goose hunt earlier on private land, and so I decided that maybe that was on private land, and maybe a guide brought a bunch of people down there and shot these geese. And then I didn't realize that I looked at them and I could see the breasts were split open on some of them, and I decided that maybe that was predators that done that. And then it got to bother me enough, I zoomed in on the pictures that we'd taken, and I could see they were all split up the chest about the same. So someone had shot these geese, as near as I could tell, and just taken the breast meat from them. How terribly wasteful. And I didn't know that people did that with geese. I would never do that. We always used all the meat and even saved the feathers for goose down pillows and things. And so it was something that I didn't understand. But after looking into it, I found that there was an emergency goose hunt open, and that some people do clean them that way and just save the breast meat and throw the rest away. And I don't know whether that's legal or not in Oregon. I would hope that it isn't such a waste, but it may be. I talked with locals about it, and no one seemed to be aware of it. I think if there was an emergency goose hunt, that they'd have known something about it, but apparently they didn't, because I did find that there was an emergency goose hunt. And anyway, the state game commission is looking into this right now to see if there's some violations and if they can figure out who did it. And so it was a pretty pathetic sight, and besides, the way they dealt with the dead geese wasn't one bit respectable. These geese are a very wonderful large bird, and it's said that they mate for a lifetime too. But the fish are biting, and it looks like we're going to catch us a nice mess of fish so we can have a good fish feed. And these are the smallmouth bass.
He's around here.
We are fishing with worms. I like to use grasshoppers when I can catch them, but it seemed like those grasshoppers were too smart for me to catch. And Marge always enjoyed fishing with worms. Maybe she likes just handling worms.
Here, let me do it. If you're not gonna get.
Let's see.
Is he?
This is about Marge's very favorite kind of fishing. She's done that ever since she was big enough to walk. And the bobber, she loves to see the bobber zigzagging around in the water. Although these bobbers slide up and down the line, and so they're not quite like the bobber she used to use.
Whatever it is, it's there. I can see it. I can see it fishing. Look at that over there.
Oh yeah, here he comes.
He's not very big.
Well, that seems to be what we're catching.
Here.
Okay, hold him up and get his picture.
Oh, Tom got one. You got peanut butter on your face, Tom. Wipe it off. Alright. Barely got him in.
There are some tumbleweeds that the wind's blown down here in the edge of the river.
That's a nice one.
And so we keep hooking into those darn tumbleweeds. And they're different than the ones we have
He's
out
hooked
of the
right on the
place.
lip.
Basically, any weed that tumble is known as a tumbleweed. It has to be a weed that'll detach from its stem, and then the wind can roll it for a tumbleweed. Some say that some varieties of people are
There he is.
picking them up and sending them to Japan, where they're using them for an Old West exhibits. With our limit of fish in the ice chest, I'm going to climb up on the hill and just see what I can find out about these geese. I want to look the whole area over, and I see every place you see a pile of feathers is where some large predator, it may be a coyote or bobcat, badgers and skunks, probably couldn't drag them very far, but anyway, wherever you see a pile of feathers, some animal is set there and eaten the goose out of the feathers and left the feathers there. So this is bothering me quite a bit. I'm thinking if it was some kind of an accidental agriculture spray that killed them, that it needs to be, they need to find out about it before more geese died. And the thing I really didn't do, I could see the breast split open on all these geese, and I thought predators done that. Then when I sat down and thought about it, I realized that had to been done by humans. So we looked into the matter quite a bit and found the Game Commission's aware of it and they're investigating it. So maybe we'll find something out. Being from the old school, whenever we'd shoot a goose, we'd use every part of it. We even used the feathers to make pillows, the down part on them. And then we'd pick the goose and put stuffing in it and save the heart, the liver, and the gizzard and bake it in the oven, and they were just really good, I thought. Some people claim that if you put milk, cut the breast off and put it in milk, that it's really good the next day, but I don't need to do that. I just like the goose the way it is. But to shoot that many geese, they must have been very experienced, good hunters, and they probably hid in blinds and put decoys out, had good goose calls and everything. On the way back to our camp, we got caught in one of those vicious thunder showers that dumps buckets of rain on you, but maybe we'll wash some of the dust off our vehicle, and when it gets really bad going, we just pull off to the side rather than go through the traffic, those big trucks or something else. And there was enough water to be a problem there. And besides, on this highway, this is one of the highways in Oregon where the speed limit is 70 miles an hour.
Oh, I got it.
When there was some hail mixed with the rain, we decided to pull off. That was getting a bit much to travel in. And besides, those thunder showers only last a few minutes, so for safety's sake, we'll just pull off and wait for it to pass. The surrounding desert was so darn dry that the rain seemed to get soaked up within a few minutes. It probably is really good for the grass. By now there were a few hailstones slamming into our windshield. I just hope they don't get big enough to break the windshield. I've seen cases where the hailstones got big enough to dent the car and break the windshield, but these were just small and just a few. And then the sun came out, and what was one excellent display of the sky. And everything smelled so good, and it made you feel so good getting a little bit of rain as we head down the road to the property where we're staying. Since it's such an extraordinarily nice evening, we decided to go down to Willow Creek Hot Springs and test the water and wash some of that fish off from us maybe. That sounded like a good idea anyway. So we went down there and found ourselves to be the only one at the hot springs. The BLMs put a new outhouse here, put new gravel around, and made some new campsites all around and put more picnic tables out. And the beauty of this all is, it's all free. If it were someplace else, that would be a very expensive resort. So we'll waste no time of getting into the hot springs. And while we were there, there was one other couple came and joined us, and we had wonderful conversations, and it was just a very, very nice evening.
Sounds like it's going to get wet. And then here's a real nice area for camping, and you can hear the waterfall and everything in the beaver dam right behind it. And here's the road that comes in, and the outhouse is right there. There's both of our limits of bass.
We arrived at the property just in time to see that big harvest moon coming up and the sun going down under smoky wildfire skies. So we're going to go fishing again the next day too. I got all the fish cleaned and ready to eat, and so we go back down to the Owyhee River and bait our hooks and try it in the same spot we were fishing the day before, but we had no luck in this spot. So we're going to have to move to another spot. And also, Marge wants to go to Rome to have dinner today. So we're going to fish a while and then go down to Rome and see how their food is in their little restaurant. We've really never eaten there before, and so we're anxious to give it a try. And try it we did, and it was an excellent feed. It's a really nice little restaurant, and they're very nice in there, and we had more than we could eat. Matter of fact, we bagged some up and took it home and used it the next day. But the fishing isn't as good as it could be here. We fished and fished and fished and never caught a thing. So we're just going to pick up and move.
Now, just a second. It's got twisted, I guess. He's a jumper. Quite letting in.
He looks pretty good too. Pretty good size
That's a
one,
nice
huh?
size.
Yeah.
Grab a hold of him.
Don't let him get back in the water if he
Okay.
gets off.
Just a minute, and I'll get a hold of him. I'll take him. He's hooked around my chair. There, I got it. There it is. Oh, I just got him around the lip. He grabbed it.
Slide him up on the rocks down here.
Big bass.
I'll be darned.
Look at him. My goodness. Look at him. Oh, goodness. He broke my line. Look. That broke my line.
I'll be darned.
Look at that.
Yeah, that's a dandy. Hold him up in front, over this way more. Yeah, nice bass. Let's see, can
I'll get out of the way.
you line up so I can take him downstream?
Yes.
He's just like yours.
Oh, great. Here, I'll move my chair and go around it.
Well, what about your line? You have to lift your pull-ups.
I haven't got my line out.
Oh,
Just get your fish in. Nice.
he's not quite as big as yours.
Come down here with me.
Here's a good place for sliding up.
Slide him in. Nice.
Not quite as big as yours, is he?
He's a nice one though. Hold him up. And I'll get my camera. And did you do it the same way?
Yeah. He hit it right in that current.
Nice fish. Now I'm... It's not a big one like yours and mine.
Okay, hold him up and let's get his picture.
See?
Yeah.
You gonna bring him in? You got him? Nice.
What's it doing?
Yeah, I'll walk back this way.
It's coming this way, isn't it?
Just a sec. I'm letting out some line.
Maybe you're just snagged.
Maybe I'm just snagged. But I thought I felt it pulling. I just want to line out. Lady, you wanna?
This time Marge was just snagged, and we're going to look around and see the pretty flowers that are decorating the banks of the Owyhee River. Well, we didn't catch our limit, but we got a lot of nice fish from the river, and so I'm going to clean them, and we're going to have us a good fish feed. I get the fish all cleaned and ready to cook, and then the ground squirrels came to visit us. That's the little antelope ground squirrel. And then let's go in and take a look at the pictures on the wall. This is 3 stallions, wild stallions, that Marge took a picture of near our trailer house. We've got a fire extinguisher there handy. And then this is some more of the wild horses that were around here. There's not as many. There were too many of them. They were going to starve. And so the BLM came in and did a big catch. Caught about 100 of them. And that's an old picture. That's my grandpa in the very early 1900s on the homestead in Wyoming. And that's a big Belgium stallion that was imported from Belgium. At first they were bred for a war horse, and so they weren't allowed to send any of them overseas, and then they lifted the ban on it. And my grandpa got one of these. He wanted the best horses, and he wanted big ones because he trained these horses and sold them to the Army at Fort Cheyenne in Wyoming. And so he was using this horse for breeding, and the horse's name was Old Major. Then some more of the wild horses standing looking at our trailer house that Marge had snapped.
Radio in here and the stereo system, which we really don't use. And of course the ground squirrels, that's the antelope ground squirrels, are part of out here. And the horse here was a real special old stallion, and we called him Old Midnight, and he'd stand and look at us here. There he is right at sunset. And of course our little Kit Fox, he was really cute, and he was always curious. The ground squirrels weren't too fond of him. We have our land sailor sitting here, just waiting for the wind to blow so we can go out and sail on one of the nearby playas. Our little camp stands right here in the rain shadow of the Steens Mountains, and the smoke is lifted just enough we can sort of get an outline of the Steens behind us, but it's still awful smoky. We have a resident jackrabbit here. I see his tracks where he's been this morning, but I haven't seen him yet. And a few resident ants in big hills all around here. There's a fair supply of ants. That one's carrying debris out of the hole and depositing it. They take it down there and get the food out of it, and then bring it up and deposit it around the edge of the ant hills. We also have a colony of kangaroo rats here. You can see where he's been dragging his tail when he comes out at night. They're strictly nocturnal. And then some really nice big beetles that are wandering around. He's a good beetle in his never-ending search for food. The hole where the kangaroo rats live, they stay in there during the daytime, and at night they come out. They hop around just like kangaroos, and they have a huge tail. They're not like a rat at all. I tried to get Marge to take some pictures of one time. Oh no, not a rat, but these aren't like a rat that you'd find in other places. These are real special. Cute little guy. And there's a tumbleweed. Most any weed that'll tumble they call a tumbleweed. And these come loose from their stem, and the wind carries them all over the desert, and they'll pile up around a fence or someplace. There's some more critter dens. The dandy anthill here. They pack these little pebbles up from below the ground and make their hills, and then they carry things in the hill, vegetation things, and they take all the food value out of it and bring the rest up and discard around the edge of their hill. This one looks like he's got a really nice big bug there. I can't really tell what that bug is right there, but I won't disturb him. It almost looks like it could be a Mormon cricket, but maybe it's something else. That'll give them quite a bit of protein. They're crawling around over it. Our family there's some good bunch grass here. Our family used to tell about the Dust Bowl, and they grew wheat on dry land. That's land without irrigation. And anyway, when the dry Dust Bowl period came along, the wheat only grew up a couple inches tall and headed, but probably didn't have but one or two shriveled kernels in it. And then the grasshoppers came along and cut the wheat off at ground level, and then the winds blew it into the cracks on the ground, and the ground had cracked and the wheat disappeared into the cracks. And then the grasshoppers were so bad, if you left a shovel out, they'd chew on the handle of it or a pitchfork, and it would make it rough. And then they'd come in the house. The grasshoppers would get in the house, and they would even eat the curtains off the walls. So it was a tough time for the old homesteaders in an area like this. And I haven't really looked up the history of this place, but I think it'll be very interesting when I do, and find out who lived here and what happened, and why it was kept in private ownership for all these years. Might be an interesting story. But my daughter hasn't had this property a terrible amount of years, quite a few years. And So it's an excellent spot, and the stargazing out here is totally incredible. According to National Geographic's, they wrote an article on this area out here, and there's supposedly less light pollution here than any other place in the entire world. We really enjoy it here. We're just a short distance from numerous hot springs, and also the peace and quiet is nice here, and when it's not smoky, the Steens Mountains are totally incredible. And our little camp, the big ranches in this area run cattle out here. So rather than fence this off and go to all that expense and trouble, we just let the ranchers take the grass with their cattle. And out here it says it takes 40 acres for one cow, and so when they have like 2,500 head of cows, they have to keep them moving all the time to keep them in grass. And the BLM does have a few wells out here for the cattle to water at, and also there's a spring out in this area where they can water. And so somebody has to spend a lot of time in the saddle chasing cows. On a clear day you can see the Steens Mountains really well, but anymore this time of year there's a lot of smoke from fires. There are more fires than I would have ever believed when I was a kid. And right over in that area, if it were clear, we could see that site where the big B-24 bomber crashed into a mountain. They were coming back from California, and they made a turn up over the Pueblo Mountains. For no one really knows why they did this, but anyway, in making a sharp turn, they lost quite a bit of over 1,000 feet of altitude, and it was at night in the winter with a lot of snow on the ground, and so the big bomber just flew at full bore right into the cliffs of the mountain. And I've been to the site. Matter of fact, I've got a video on it that you can look up. And anyway, part of the main beams of the airplane are buried into the cliff, and out of the 11 men from the town of Denio, Nevada, they saw the plane crash and saw the ball of fire happen, but it took them days to get up there because they had to go on horseback, and they finally found it, and they brought the crumpled up bodies out as best they could find, but there was snow on the ground and it was freezing cold, and they didn't get all of them. So not too many years ago they did a archaeological dig on the site, and they found a lot of human remains, that is bones and things that they missed when they went up there originally. And so they dug these all up, all they could find, when they sifted the soil, and they took these remains to Arlington National Cemetery, and that's where they're buried. And when they packed these these soldiers out of the Pueblo Mountains. They just tied them over a saddle in a pack train, more or less similar to what you see in the old Western movies.